So welcome to the second flight in the ATR 72600. Today we're going to be flying from Zakinthos in Greece down to Crete in Greece. So this should be hopefully a very nice flight, very good weather. Greece in the summer, very nice. So let's get started. The first thing we'll do, go to the overhead panel and turn on the battery. Go back down to the main panel, turn off the master caution. Now on the EFB we'll set the payload. So let's load up with our fuel. So today we have 68 passengers. And we have 1623 kilos of fuel. So we enter that. Load that up. That set our takeoff trim and our operating speeds. So we'll set the takeoff trim automatically. We'll check the runway condition set to dry. Check our power levers are set to ground idle. The idle gate is set to the ground because it's pulled. Flight is push, ground is pulled. And overhead, turn on the external power. And we will set the prop brake on. And set fuel pump for engine 2 on. Set the starter for start AB, and we will start engine 2. We can see engine 2 starting to spool up, so that's sufficient time to set the condition lever from fuel shutoff to FTR, which is feather. Back overhead, the light is extinguished for the ignition for engine start 2, so we can turn the starter back off. We will turn the windshield heating on. We'll turn all 3 probes on. There's some debate as about whether to do this now or whether when we're sort of starting to take off, but we'll do that now. Oxygen supply on, passenger oxygen supply on. Well, this is interesting. So if I turn that on, the pressure immediately decreases. So we'll see what happens once both engines are on, whether actually that is a problem. Okay, navigation lights on because the aircraft is operating. And we can now remove ground power. We no longer need that to start the engine. And we will dismiss ground power from the ground services. And we will begin the catering service. And we will begin boarding. So on the flight management computer we will set our initialization for our position. So we'll take that from our GPS position and initialize. And we'll check our weights. They're all entered. Check our performance. We'll put our cruise altitude in, which is 19,000. No alternative airport today. And then what we'll do under RMS is we'll tune in now to the ATIS frequency so that we can get our weather information. So the ATIS frequency, I will just check on BeyondATC. Meanwhile, the passengers have started arriving and the catering truck is loading up. So back on RMS, we will set our frequency to ATIS, which is 1, 2, done that wrong, 127 decimal 055 VHF1. We'll just wait for that to load.
2.16 QNH 1014 landing and deporting runway 34 transition level 080 numerous cranes in operation around Dionysios Solomos. Advise on initial contact, you have information hotel. Dionysios Solomos Airport Information Hotel 1149 Zulu. Wind variable, few clouds at 1800. Temperature to 2.16 QNH 1014 landing and deporting runway 34 transition level 080 numerous cranes in operation around Dionysios Solomos. Advise on initial contact, you have information hotel.
So that's good. So we have QNH of 1014 departing from runway 34, which we were anticipating, and information hotel. So we've just tuned into the tower, so we'll get our IFR clearance for our flight plan. So we'll call into the tower now. Olympic 477 with information hotel QNH 1014 requesting IFR clearance to Nikos Kazanthas, please.
Olympic 477 Zakinthos Tower information hotel correct, expect runway 34. Climb 6,000 feet on runway center line, then expect radar vector triple VOR squawk 1460.
Expecting runway 34, altitude 6,000 feet, expecting vectors to SSS VOR, squawking 1460, Olympic 477.
Olympic 477, read back correct. Call me back when ready for pushback, orange and start.
Wilco, Olympic 477. Okay, so a little bit of information to take on there. We'll do the squawk first. So 1460. Still on standby, so that's good. The same, we'll depart from runway 34, so that's fine. Altitude clearance of 6,000. So let's put 6,000 into that altitude heading before we forget. And they're saying to depart from the runway centerline, then expect vectors to SSS VOR. So we won't be using a departure SID in this case. So we have to see how that affects our flight plan. So let's go to the computer. Flight plan, new flight plan. So set our route. So we are going from LGZA to LGIR. Enter that in the from to exec. So we have a discontinuity. So from LGZA, which is this airport, we're departing from runway 34. They have not given us a SID to depart from, at the moment. They want us to basically take the runway heading. So I'm just going to exact that as a departure. Unless there's a transition. No. So I'm going to put the rest of the route in. So next waypoint is Zak. I'm reading this off my SimBrief flight plan. Zak. Then after Zak, TRL. After TRL, we follow the Lima 612 airway. As far as GSX. Zak. And after GSX, we go to Navus, and this would be the last waypoint before our expected star into Crete. So I'll take it as far as Navus for now. There's the S. Exec that. So if we go and look at navigation display, increase the range. So we have a route that's going to take us all the way down to Crete to start with. Okay. So just to reduce the range a bit. So just back to the flight management computer performance, just checking our speeds. Our transition altitude is actually 8,000, so we need to amend that. So rotate speed 112, so that's fine. So next the altimeter. What did they say on the ATIS? 1014. So that's on the knob over here. So 1014 set. Make sure power management is set to takeoff on that. Autopilot panel, check we're on flight director, and we're going to fly heading mode initially, and we'll set the heading as soon as we're set up on the runway. We can do that now actually, can't we, because we know it's 340 degrees. So runway 34, but we'll double check that before we take off. And we'll set the indicated airspeed mode on the autopilot, and the altitude we've set 6,000 feet. Check the idle gate again, it's pulled. All the trims are fine. We'll just have to wait now for our ground services to be completed. So let's check how they're doing outside. Looks like we've still got a few bags to load. I think all the passengers are on now. It's a lovely day here. So we've got British Airways, Sky Express alongside, and Smartwings. might take a little while, so I might jump ahead in the video. Looks like he could use some help. Yeah, we'll come back in a second. I love the realistic way they're just chucked onto the conveyor. It's probably a little less dramatic than in reality. I'm sure he'll try and throttle them about halfway up the belt. They do an excellent job, don't they? Let's wait till he's got to this last cart. Okay, so baggage is all loaded. So we will see if we can request push and start. Just make sure our doors are closed. Keep our wheel chocks on. So let's request push and start. Olympic 477 at stand 3, requesting push and start, please.
Olympic 477, Zakinthos Tower, pushback end engine start approved. Face south.
Pushback and engine start approved, facing south, Olympic 477. So let's get the ground crew to prepare for pushback and departure. We will confirm our parking brake is set. It is. Before we start moving, we need to set our beacon light on and our taxi lights on. We'll put our logo lights on as well. We'll put our wing lights on. Make sure our seat belts are on, no devices. We'll set the emergency lighting. Going to set our annunciation lights to bright. So we need to face south, so we need to be heading towards the right. So we'll take off our wheel chocks and our parking brake. And we want to be nose right till left. They are released. What does she want me? Okay. So she wanted me to basically put it back on before I could take it off again. That's fine. So let's start engine 1. So we'll set the engine start to start AB, set the fuel pump running for engine 1, and start the engine. As soon as that's above 10, we can set the fuel condition lever to feather. So we have a good start on the engine. Gas lock is on. We can now set the condition lever for engine 1 to auto. Check that we have sufficient hydraulic power, which we don't yet. As soon as the engine powers up sufficiently, we have now sufficient electronic power, so we can turn off the prop brake. Prop brake is unlocked, prop brake is off. So engine 2 is now starting to power up as well. So we will set the parking brake back and set the engine 2 condition lever to auto, and we will confirm with the ground crew that we have a good engine start. Excellent. So now via overhead, we need to make sure this time they were good. The engine bleeds need to be on, just to double check. Turn off the engine starter. Need to find out why we've got low pressure on the oxygen supply. Is it because we've got the passenger supply on? Need to come back to that one. Right, so we need to now request clearance for taxi. Zakinthos Tower, Olympic 477, ready to taxi please.
Olympic 477, runway 34 taxi via Alpha, Alpha 1.
Taxiing to runway 34 via Alpha and Alpha 1, Olympic 477. So that means that we just need to go straight ahead until the end and hold before we get to the runway. We won't enter the runway without requesting departure. So parking brake off. Throttles in ground idle, so we should start rolling forwards. So we'll set our flaps. So initial setting 15 degrees. So they're lowered. Beautiful day in Greece today. As usual, there's a random ground vehicle wants to play a game of chicken with a small regional airliner. Let's see who wins this one. They're just going to stop dead, aren't they? Doesn't matter that we're on update 15. We still have these crazy ground vehicles. Wonderful. Really adds to the realism. Okay, so we're going to hold now before we backtrack on the runway. So I will call up ATC again. Zakinthos.
Aircraft calling, did not copy.
I'm not surprised because I just choked. Zakinthos Tower, Olympic 477, requesting departure please.
Olympic 477, backtrack runway 34. Call when ready for departure.
Backtracking runway 34, Olympic 477. Give it a little bit of power. Very subtle on the throttle. Oh, you know what I've done again? I've done it again. I've forgotten the strobes and my landing lights. Oh, every time. Technically I'm not on the runway. I'm past the holding point, so that could be argued that I am, but let's pretend I did that in time. I think I can be forgiven. If that's the worst thing that goes wrong today, I think we're okay. Let's give it some beans to get to the end of the runway before the sun sets. At the moment I'm not too confident about being able to take off very well in this plane, so I'm going to give myself the full length of the runway. There are a few turning positions here, but I'm going to go right to the end. No point risking it. All the lives of these 68 virtual people. Let's be safe, let's be a good pilot. Let's try and follow the procedures. Do something right for once. You see, when I'm taxiing down the runway, I can't even be on the centre line, let alone landing. It's a real attention to detail, as you can see. Very light winds. Bit of patchy tarmac. Could do with a bit of resurfacing here in Zakinthos. I'm sure someone will tell me this is the point I should have turned around, but as I can see there's still more tarmac which I can use, so maybe I'm gonna just go a little further. I think these arrows are so you don't actually use that part of the runway, correct? Yeah. Well, we're still learning, aren't we? So we're gonna do a 180. I say, nice generous turn circle there. I've had worse. So let's line up nice and central before we get full clearance. That'll do. So we're going to set our heading initially from this position, and 6,000 feet, still our altitude, indicated airspeed mode. So let's get full clearance again. Zakinthos Tower, Olympic 477, requesting departure please.
Olympic 477, Zakynthos Tower, wind variable, fly heading 100, runway 34, cleared for takeoff.
Cleared for takeoff, runway 34, Olympic 477. Okay, so they're asking us to fly heading 100. So that's different from the instructions that we have for clearance. So we'll just set that first. So that's sort of heading to our 4 o'clock as soon as we engage the autopilot. And okay, we'll just go through the rest of the procedures. So we'll still fly 6,000 feet because they didn't say any different. We are in indicated airspeed mode. Let's set our yaw damper on. And flaps are set. Right, so we'll set the power lever to notch, which I didn't do last time. I just went full power. So I've set my throttle up properly now. Yeah, and let's wheel brakes off. Let's get rolling. It's into notch. Rotate speed was 114, I believe. Rotate. Gear up. Positive rate of climb. We will take flaps up. So very sensitive.
Olympic 477, reset transponder. Squawk 2224.
Squawk 2224 for Olympic 477. So we're heading on 100 degree
Olympic
heading.
477, contact Andravada departure 121.125.
Zakinthos Tower, contact Andravida departure on 121.125, Olympic 477. Andravida approach, Olympic 477, climbing to 6,000 feet.
Olympic 477, Andravida departure, identified, climb to flight level 100.
Climbing to flight level 100, Olympic 477.
Olympic 477, cleared direct Tripolis VOR, resume on navigation.
Cleared direct to TRL, Olympic 477. Right, so that means that we need to go directly to the point on our flight plan, TRL. So we'll go direct to TRL exec. So that's our next waypoint, and now we will set our navigation mode to nav mode, and that will start following our navigation mode rather than the 100-degree heading which was originally set. And because I was a little busy there, I hadn't yet put us into climb mode, which I need to do next. The engine power will reduce. The speed is going to aim for 170 and climb at a sustainable fashion to keep 170 and to go to 10,000 feet. So that was a little messy. So much to do and no co-pilot, but looks like we're on our way. So that's good. That's our standard cruise speed, 170. We are en route. Set to climb 10,000 feet. Excellent. And goodbye Zakinthos. On our way to sunny Crete.
Olympic 477, contact Athens Control 135.875.
Androvida approach, contacting Athens Control on 135.875, Olympic 477. So I mistakenly had auto tune on before, so I like to have a bit of realism with the frequencies. So let's tune into Athens Control. Athens Control, Olympic 477 at 8,000 feet, climb into flight level 100.
Olympic 477, Athens Control, identified, climb to flight level 190.
Climb into flight level 190, Olympic 477. No, that's the wrong switch. Could cause devastating consequences. Let's press the right button, shall we? We're going to flight level 190. So that's our full climb height. So 10,000 feet, we turn the landing lights off and we can turn the passenger signs off, so we can move around the cabin again. So 104 degrees bearing, 55 nautical miles until this next waypoint. Climbing steadily, 1,000 feet per minute. Target speed of 170. It's a safe rate of climb. And also making sure we use indicated airspeed mode. We will use vertical speed mode on descent only. So this is much more managed with this power setting than it was on the first flight. So I feel like a little bit more confident now with being able to take off. Quite a lot to do altogether at the same time, but that's the job. So I'll join you later on in the cruise.